What's up, gamers? 42 Abracadabra here to show you a little gaming magic. Today we're going to look at what I think are the top 10 Journey to Un'Goro cards for the new Hearthstone expansion. As always, this is just my opinion. Let's jump into it. At number 10 we have Primal Glyph. This is an interesting card because the spell you can discover can be itself, and you can keep on discovering it, chaining up the number of spells you have played. It's also interesting because at turn 2 it can be a better play than the hero power that mages tend to use, so it has more value in that regard. And if the spell that you're discovering is a 2-cost spell and you play it immediately or soon after, you can think of this as excess mana, basically 0 cost to draw a card. Also, what you discover is likely under 5 mana, and as such it plays well into being able to play it on turn 3, meaning a 5-cost spell reduced to 3 plays very well on curve the following turn. At number 9 we have Tar Creeper. Now I know this is just a common, but it's actually a very well statted card. It really is a 3 for a 3/5 taunt, which makes it a kind of a power creep on Sen'jin Shieldmaster. Although that doesn't see any play, the fact that this is 1 mana cheaper is very significant, because you can also compare it to Blackwing Tactician, and that's 3 for a 3/5 provided that you have a dragon, and that saw a lot of play and it doesn't have taunt. Now it doesn't let you trade as effectively during your turn because it's a 1/5 on your turn, but you're playing this in a defensive deck, a slower deck, and on your enemy's turn a 3 for a 3/5 taunt will hold them back, so it's doing its job. At number 8 we have Vile Spine Slayer. This is a very interesting card, very comparable to Assassinate. Now there are some key differences. You need to combo to be able to destroy a minion despite the same cost, but you get the benefit of a 3/4 body. What makes Vile Spine superior in a lot of aspects is by being a creature you can bounce it back to your hand and play it again. So most likely you won't be able to play it on turn 5 unless you combo it out with the coin, but you can Shadow Step Assassinate, and you can Shadow Step this and keep killing their creatures using the same card. So it's a great tech. At number 7 we have Blaze Caller. This comes as no surprise because it's a better fire elemental. It does cost 1 more, but you get 1 more health and you deal 2 more damage off the battle cry. It does require an elemental, but you're really playing this in an elemental deck, and the fact that it's neutral means you're not just limited to Shaman. You can also compare it to Fireland's Portal, which also did 5 damage and summoned a 5-cost minion, and the chances of you getting a 6/6 were pretty much non-existent. There's a 6/6 which when dies gives your opponent 8 health, but this guarantees you a 6/6 body without any drawbacks, so better than both cards, and those were class specific. This is incredibly strong. At number 6 we have Clutch Mother Zavis. This is actually one of my favorite cards of this expansion. It's just a 2/2 for 2, but where it shines is it plays well in a Warlock discard, which I used to play a lot and enjoyed. Think of playing a Soulfire turn 1, dealing 4 damage, discarding this, having no drawbacks, and the following turn you basically play a Millhouse again without any drawbacks. And this is kind of an ideal scenario because the odds of you discarding Clutch Mother with Soulfire are a little difficult because you have other cards in your hand, but you can play around it, wait later on when she's the only thing in your hand, discard her, she comes back, and you can hold on to her for a few turns, powering her up further to make her a 6/6 for example for 2. It's great value when you're playing a Zoo discard. Moving on to number 5, we're going to look at the quest Awaken the Maker. Now there's a lot of neat quests in this expansion. Some of them are harder to execute than others, and I don't list all of them, so this kind of is the quest slot, and I've included this one in particular because in a more control play style this one is very viable, because the result and reward of completing the quest is Amara, Warden of Hope, and she's a better Reno Jackson because instead of just healing yourself, you heal yourself and then gain an additional 10 health, and she comes as an 8/8 taunt. So super strong. You won't always be able to play her as early as Reno Jackson. In fact, you're probably going to be playing her later, which can be a little difficult because aggro can get the better of you. But if your death rattles are death rattles with taunt, you can hold your opponent off better, and your hero power heals you, unlike Reno Mage or Reno Warlock, where they're having a harder time to preserve their health. At number 4, we have Sunkeeper Tarim. I believe this card should get a lot more love than it actually is getting right now because it's very versatile. It's similar to Keeper of Uldaman, but for 2 extra mana, you get 3 more health and taunt. Now, it is a bit slower, but it has the benefit of an AoE effect. So you can buff your Silverhand recruits, increasing your army. You can also debuff a bunch of enemy minions. It's comparable to Edric the Pure, but Edric didn't see any play because it's not able to deal with high health minions because it only changes their attack, and you can't buff your own minions, and it doesn't have taunt, and it costs 1 more. So Sunkeeper takes care of all those problems and is a very strong card to watch out. At number 3, we have Meteor. Oh man, is this strong? Like, we're talking Flame Lance deals 8 damage, kills almost everything. That wasn't enough, man. We gotta deal 15 damage. Like, nothing can survive this. But also, hey, let's just build in an AoE effect too. We'll just kill everything around it. This takes down things with stealth. This takes down things with 3 health, which makes it superior to Blizzard, because Blizzard can only deal 2 damage, costing the same amount. I mean, freeze aside, like, we're really talking about killing monsters, not just holding off. And sure, Mage has some synergy with freeze effects, but they're not that drastic. This is pretty much lethal board wipe, and it's actually cheaper than Flame Strike, unless your opponent has so many threats that you can't kill 3 of them with Meteor on a turn sooner. I mean, I see Meteor being played over Blizzard and over Flame Strike and over Flame Lance, so it's like the best of all worlds. Such a strong card. At number 2, we have Corrupting Mist. The closest comparison is obviously Doomsayer. Doomsayer has the advantage of being neutral, whereas Corrupting Mist is only Warlock specific. But Corrupting Mist is very good because, unlike Doomsayer, it's not as easy to counter. Doomsayer can be destroyed and then the board is still a threat, and 7 health is manageable to kill with the right spells or the right buffs or all that. Doomsayer can be bounced back to your hand. Corrupting Mist, it really, all you can do to save your creatures is silence them or try to bounce your own creatures back. Like, it's a lot harder to work around with the same cost. It's also comparable to Corruption. Corruption sees no play, and it really just targets one monster. This targets all your enemy monsters. And if you're down on the board, you don't really care if some of your creatures dies. Also, if you play Corrupting Mist and then you play a strong creature, your creature is unaffected by the corruption, whereas Doomsayer will kill the things you play after Doomsayer. So there's more versatility in usage with Corrupting Mist. So really valuable card. When you think about all the removal available to Warlock, there aren't that many effective AoE effects that are at such a cheap cost. I mean, the next thing up you see is Fellfire Potion, which deals 5 damage to everything. Again, you have a creature on the field, Fellfire kills that creature, and Corrupting Mist you can play for 2 mana and then still play something else for 4 mana, which will not die. So when you put it in perspective with that, again, more usage. So at number 1, we have Spirit Singer Umbra. This is a very strong card. It's comparable to Bran Bronzebeard, which is rotating out. And Spirit Singer works really well with Death Rattles, which previously were a bit slow, so some of the really good effects took a while to kick in. They could have been silenced, they could have been bounced, so there were ways to deal with it. And now you're able to play these Death Rattles as kind of like a battle cry effect, and then as a Death Rattle as well. So it makes it superior to the previous legendary that would let you trigger Death Rattles twice, because even if you had that on the field and you play one of your Death Rattle minions, they can take care of the legendary before the Death Rattles double up. Whereas with Spirit Singer Umbra, it costing 4 mana is really valuable because a lot of strong Death Rattle minions cost 6 or less. So you can play on turn 10 an Aya Blackpaw with Spirit Singer, and then Aya will get her Battlecry effect, then her Death Rattle comes in immediately, and then she's got a follow-up Death Rattle when she dies, meaning you get 3 Jade Golems out of it. That's a lot of good value. Or if you have Spirit Singer already on the field and it's their turn 7, on turn 8 you play a Tyrion and you equip an Ashbringer immediately, right? So you don't have to wait till the death rattle, and that's so valuable if you need a more urgent play. Now the stat line isn't quite as good as Bran because you're paying 1 more mana and you only get 1 more attack. So in that regard, getting Bran out earlier is valuable. But Bran's rotating out, and this card will be great because a lot of people will be building decks around this. So let's look at some honorable mentions. A really neat card is Living Mana. It reminds me a lot of Astral Communion, even though it plays differently. But if it succeeds, it's a potential game winner. This is a very risky card because on turn 5, turning all your mana into 2/2s means for 5 mana you get 10/10 worth of stats. And when your creatures die, you get the mana back, so it's valuable. You can trade in your creatures and then get the mana back as you need it. But what happens if your opponent has a board silence playing Priest? What happens if your opponent plays Rogue and bounces all your creatures back? Well, you have like no mana and you may as well have lost the game at that point. So it's a very risky card, very exciting. I don't think a lot of people will be playing cards specifically to hate against it. So casually, it should see some play and decks built around it. And I'm definitely going to be checking out how it plays and trying it out. Another exciting honorable mention is Ravenous Pterodax. So you're thinking 4 for a 4/4, whatever stats, and you have to destroy a creature to adapt twice. Well, destroying a creature can be a problem, but what happens if the creature you destroy is a Devilsaur Egg? So now you basically were able to get the 5/5 that you needed because you couldn't attack with it, or just anything else you really need to die. You can trigger a death rattle if you need to. Even killing like a 1/1 minion or something to be able to adapt twice can be great, because if you remember what the adaptations are, they range from +3 attack, +3 health, being able to get taunt, being able to get wind fury, poisonous, all kinds of things. Now there's an inconsistency because you're only discovering some of those adaptations, but just a 4/7 anything for 4 at the cost of killing a creature that could be of benefit to you, that's pretty valuable. And if you have nothing to kill, then it's just a 4/4, right? It's a pretty good card. A lot of players that are sick of aggressive weapon decks like Pirate Warrior have another godsend in the form of Gluttonous Ooze. It's very similar to Acidic Swamp Ooze, but for an extra mana you get 1 more toughness and you get armor equal to the attack of the weapon you destroy. So if they're a warrior with a 3 or 5 attack weapon, well, you get 3 or 5 armor. That's really valuable. But if they don't have a weapon, 3 for a 3/3 stat line is kind of bad. And having the flexibility of having an Acidic Swamp Ooze and a Gluttonous Ooze, running both, running 4 of them if you really want to hate against weapon decks, I mean, you can do that. It really depends on what it is you want to run and when, but having another tool that's so strong is definitely helpful. Another honorable mention that's borderline top 10 is Kalamos Primal Lord. And the reason it's not top 10 is because between Blaze Caller and this, I chose to put Blaze Caller in the top 10 since it can be in any class and you can be played a little sooner. But an 8 mana 7/7 that lets you cast one of the invocations is incredibly powerful, because if you look at the invocations, you're basically getting a deal 3 damage to all enemy minions, like a slightly weaker Flame Strike, or you can restore 12 health, deal 6 damage to their face, fill your board with 1/1s, probably the least likely used, but again, if you need to rush them, you can. And it's generally very strong, but the thing is, when you're playing Shaman, you're usually more aggressive. There aren't that many controlling Shaman cards that'll let you hold off until a later game to play Kalamos. So something to keep in mind, but definitely a game-changing card and lots of fun. Great pull for anyone who does pull it. Arcanologist is a pretty good 2-drop. 2 for 2/3 stats is okay, but what is really good about it is you get to draw a secret. So 2 for a 2/3, draw a card and draw a card that's useful and draw a card that you can play on curve next turn is really valuable. I mean, you can draw an ice block, right? It compares to Mad Scientist. Of course, Mad Scientist is pretty broken and you get to play it for free and put it in your deck. But Archaeologist is a good card, so anyone who runs just a few secrets can benefit from it. So let me know what you guys think of the new Journey to Un'Goro cards and whether you agree or disagree with my choices. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you're new here, subscribe for more game-related videos. As always, happy gaming. I wish you guys great pulls and look forward to playing against some of you with the new Journey to Un'Goro cards.